Hello, hello, everybody. We are back. Hopefully we've got Victoria on this time. I'm super psyched to talk to her, and she'll be joining our chat in just a second here. I think we got it figured out. We had some technical difficulties, but we'll be ready to go. So hello, we'll say hello again to all our sweet friends. We're doing it. Technology is awesome. Flexibility. Hi, Victoria. I see you in there. I'm going to request you to join, go live, and she will be right on us. Thank you for all your patience, y'all. We're going to be good to go. Victoria, accept the request. All right, friends, for those of you that are joining us again for the first time, we are going to be talking with Victoria Villasana today and about her embroidery work and about kind of how that beginning of her work originated and how you can incorporate it into your own classroom. Yay, Victoria!
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry to keep you waiting. So
it's fine. You got your whole crew here. You're totally fine. Don't you worry one second about
Mexican, always late.
You're
but I promise I was
late.
on time.
You're trying to make us, I said you're fashionably late. You're trying to make us excited to see you.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's what I thought. Well,
yeah, happy Women's Day, everybody.
Say again.
Happy Women's Day, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. Happy Women's Day to everyone, right? Including those beautiful, amazing rock star women. Well, speaking of that, rock star woman, Victoria, can you go ahead and just introduce yourself a little bit for those people that are just joining us today about you and your work and what you do?
Okay. Well, I'm a textile artist from Mexico. I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico. When I was in Mexico, I studied design, but I wasn't really into. It was more like it was a combination of industrial design and graphic design. Mm-hmm. But there was something about it I don't know. I really wanted to try something else. So then I decided to go traveling, and I was traveling around London and moved to, I really loved London, so I stayed there. And my process to become a textile artist, it wasn't something like a straight line, I had to go, I had to go through the whole process. But yeah, I think the journey has been really, quite long, but also quite fun, because I before this, I did floristry and I work in fashion as well. So,
I did not know you were a florist. That would explain some of the patterns maybe that you choose and the bright colors.
Yeah, it wasn't something that I planned, but when I was there, I saw, that they were training, and I was like, oh, this looks fun. And it was good because, you could work and then they would train you. So it was like a really nice, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Working with flowers and with plants, and, it was creative. I really, I worked 3 years in floristry, and then I work in fashion.
That's amazing. I see both of those influences in your work. I assume that's sort of part of it. That's why the journey goes like this, is because all those things you picked up along the way helped to define who you are as an artist, right?
Yeah, so, I think everything is important, it's like the mixture.
Yeah. It's like a beautiful soup of all the things that make us who we are, right? Yeah. So Victoria, can you tell us a little bit about your process? I'm always curious. The photos that you choose, the colors, the patterns that you choose. Can you tell us about how you actually work? Because those of you that are joining us today, Victoria embroiders right onto photographs, right? And sometimes on canvas. Can you just tell us about the process for how that actually works?
Well, it's kind of a built up of things. So normally, I think like most people, we gravitate towards pop culture. So like as an entertainment, right? So normally I'm probably watching a movie or a documentary, I basically educate myself through pop culture. Most of it, reading books and yeah, documentaries, movie, music, fashion, all these kind of things. So if I'm watching a movie, maybe I feel, connected with the character or something, an emotion builds up, and it's kind of an idea pops up, and then it's like, oh, maybe I'm gonna create this character. So maybe I start to do some research in that character, investigate a little bit, and then I start to select like kind of the photo, the has the expression, the kind of I feel connected to, or like what I want to say is kind of transmitted somehow in the photo as well. So that's kind of like and I feel like at that it starts to build up. And then for example, if I'm making a musician, I'm starting to hear music about him or her and dance with their music, and it's like I built up the whole thing. And then once I get into the textile, I sort of just pick some certain colors, maybe 3 or something, but then there's no, then if I feel like adding another color is fine. Then the part of me creating the pattern is very, very much very intuitive. I don't like to plan. I like to just go for it. So I basically
I love that.
take the needle, and then it's kind of like, I get into this conversation with the photo, and it's kind of like I feel almost like I'm not the one creating it. It's like it sounds a bit crazy maybe, like the same photo.
You're talking to artists and art teachers. It's not crazy, I promise.
So it's kind of like the same, by moving this, thread here with these colors, and then, oh, you have to move it here. And, I love it because I think I found a technique. I love textiles. I think this is my technique, because I feel that my ego doesn't get in the way so much, like the rational mind is kind of more this kind of curiosity, like this child wonder, that we all kind of have. And I just have a lot of fun with it, and I just let myself go.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's really interesting too, admittedly, to know that you don't plan a lot of it and you're kind of just like being more intuitive with your work. Would you say that most of your pieces you don't map out the colors or the patterns and you just start?
Yeah, I mean, for example, when I work with brands, obviously in those cases, yeah, kind of, even if I've been lucky and they give me a lot of freedom, of course I need to let them know, like, I'm gonna do this, right?
Right.
So I tend to do a digital mock-up of how, and maybe show previous works or something like that. But if it's something there is a commission, or it's something that I'm just creating, I really don't like to plan it. I kind of I perhaps have an idea of maybe, how things can balance, or how colors can combine better or something. But I really don't like to plan it.
I think that's really interesting too. And speaking to the fact that art educators, we're teaching our students how to kind of problem solve, and knowing that sometimes it's okay to go into something without a plan and see what happens and problem solve along the way, which it sounds like is what you oftentimes do. Now, I did see a few questions about the photographs that you use, and after this, I'll be linking some of the videos that you have about your work and about your process in the Art of Ed Instagram. But I'm curious, can you tell us, have you ever taken photographs of people and then embroidered on those, or do you always find older photographs from other photographers? Like, how does the actual collection of the photograph work, right? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I sometimes I take some photos, but most of the time I just find them or collaborate with other photographers.
Sure.
So it's a bit of a combination of both. But because it's a pop culture element that I gravitate towards, I try to find the photos online as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I could see that being a really cool tie-in if you have a photography class, or like maybe for some of our upper students or high school students that can take the photos themselves and then have another class embroider on top of it. So it's this collaborative piece that could be really, really interesting. And then
I think
last
also, for
question.
example, maybe if you, sorry, like
No,
it would
please.
be really cool, for example, portraits of your family, you know, ancestors or something like that. I think
Yeah,
it could be an incredible project to connect with your roots, like
absolutely.
embroidering old photos and stuff like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of times those older photos are so beautiful to look at, but then taking it a step further and kind of investigating what else you can put your artistic spin on, it really makes it a little
Mm,
more special and brings
mm,
it into the contemporary art world, right?
mm.
Okay, so last process question that I have, unless somebody else puts one in the chat, is I did a project with our students where they were embroidering into kind of like a thicker paper.
Mhm.
But obviously that can be tricky because it can tear the paper. I mean, they're like 10 years old, right? The kids that I did
Okay.
this with. So it can be really complicated. What advice or techniques do you do to ensure that your embroidery stays intact? Do you often embroider on paper, or is it canvas, or what helps you?
I use canvas and paper. I normally use canvas for the bigger pieces,
Mm,
and for
sure.
the kind of smaller or medium, I use paper. For me, the best is if the paper is thick, is better.
Mm, yeah.
I mean, no as thick, perhaps. I think what it really helps is masking tape at the back. Have you
The
tried
whole
that?
thing. I did do it with
Yes.
some of the students that were having trouble, but just like masking tape the whole back of it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Or like laminate? I don't know. I'm still brainstorming, but I love that trick.
Yeah, laminate, just to add some sort of support. Um, yeah, I think masking tape would be because that kind of helps to create kind of glue the whole thing together. Also,
Sure.
not to make, to reuse holes. So not, not to, or maybe, there is a technique. There is, I believe, I'm not sure, is kind of like waving on top as well.
Mm-hmm.
It could, like, um, yeah, but I think thick paper and masking tape would be really good,
Yeah,
basically.
completely. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you usually use yarn and not like embroidery thread, correct?
Yeah, I use yarn. Yeah, I use
Okay.
different thickness of yarn,
Yeah.
but yes, it's yarn. Yeah,
I think
like
that's partly how
like.
you can get those. Yeah, exactly. How you get those big bold colors too, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the process videos of your canvases where you're like lifting underneath the canvas those huge, huge pieces,
Mhm.
Victoria. What's the biggest piece you've made? Do you know?
Oh my God, it was one for. I mean, I don't wanna. This was something that it was for Rihanna actually. It was
Oh
a
wow.
project for one of her charities,
Mm-hmm.
because she has a charity for girls and stuff like that. So it was an event in New York with this company that they do different types of socks. So it was a collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
and they were gonna raise money. So they asked me to do a canvas that was kind of like, I think, 3 meters tall.
Woo! Okay.
So I actually had to have another person on the other side of the canvas to help me. Oh my God,
Yeah, because you can't
it
hold
was,
it.
yeah, because obviously my little hand is not able to reach that far, and so yeah, that was really intense work because yeah, I had to have one girl next, we were chatting, so it was cool. So, but it was like a,
Yeah.
really slow process.
What an interest. And see, again, my teacher brain is saying, wouldn't that be cool to have kids do something as a partner work? Doesn't even have to be big, but like try to create something and have one person on one side and one on the other, and you can only communicate
I
like
think it
by
could
telling
be
them when
even
you
a
need a
very
needle.
interesting social piece,
Yeah,
of a
absolutely.
collaboration, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I love that. I love that's such an interesting process. Okay, so the next question. Sorry, just checking these questions here. Does your yarn work pull inspiration from the tradition of Mexican yarn painting at all? Have you heard? It's
yeah, there is a technique from the Huicholes, which is a indigenous group from actually from my area, and basically what they do is in wood panels they glue they glue yarn, and they make like um, spiritual patterns, from the traditions. They tend to use a lot of like animals motifs, or yeah, like some sort of panels. I think the technique is amazing. I don't use that technique
right.
in the photos because it's stitching, but I have tried it in an abstract way and I love it. I think I would love to do something more like in an abstract way, and
Yeah.
bigger pieces would be cool for me.
That
Yeah.
I think that could be a really fun direction to go for sure.
Yeah.
So yes, they're saying it's like an additive process with glue. So it's basically, yes, to my knowledge, pieces of yarn that then combine together to create an image. So it's
Yeah.
not woven or embroidered. Okay. Yes.
No, it's
So
blue.
beautiful. So let's go back to some thinking about just your work in particular. What kinds of things do you want people to feel or see or think when they view a piece of your work?
Well, I think they can, but what, I don't want to tell you must feel this.
Well, right, of course. What might they feel? What's your envision?
No, I think for me, what gets me excited about textiles and everything to do with textile, of what other people are doing with textiles, is the fact that is nurturing, is soft, like the soft sculptures.
Yes.
It reminds, I think it could remind us to all of these amazing women, our grandmas, our aunties, the little, like there is a very emotional thing with textiles. I don't know why I feel this emotional thing, and I feel like a sense of belonging whenever I see textiles. So I guess if they want to feel that, that would be cool.
I love that story. It's like a nostalgic kind of feeling,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It brings you back, and I agree. I mean, I have many memories of my grandma crocheting and knitting, and there's something about that for sure. And I think that's really special. I also know a lot of your yarn ends are left uncut typically, or maybe unfinished, unraveled. Can you tell us about some of the symbolism for the choice in leaving that unfinished?
Yeah, I think, for me, I have a big fascination with cultures in general, different cultures. And one, for example, there is a process in Japanese culture called wabi-sabi that they use in interior design, and this kind of this philosophy of imperfection, of embracing imperfection. So they actually, if they have like a pot that is broken, they painted the broken parts in gold. So it's kind of enhancing the imperfection, not trying to to be perfect.
Sure.
I like that part, so that's why it's kind of some of my pieces look a little bit unfinished and kind of not perfect. So it's kind of reflecting that. Also, the fact that the kind of yarn is leaving the frame or the box, for me is a kind of metaphor of us human, that we are never done. We're always kind of expanding. We have, we're always learning. So there is this openness, something of ourselves. So for me, living the yarn like that is that invitation. Like you know, not to keep yourself in the structure, to leave yourself, you know, far beyond that, far your limits, far, you know, your limitations, your programming, you know, to let yourself expand and be who you are, something like that.
That's beautiful. It's kind of like, as people, we don't like to live within a box, right? A frame, but we can extend our experiences a little bit further. And that's what symbolically those ends mean. I love that. I think I was telling my students about that when we were learning together, and they, you know, seeing the process of an artist working, but also knowing everything that is done is an intentional choice, right? The choice to leave it unfinished or to kind of bring your eye outside of the frame is intentional. And that's really great to hear the reasoning behind it as well. Thank you, Victoria. So most of our audience in general with the Art of Ed is filled with art teachers, but of course, many other people that are watching our chat today. Can you tell us what your experience was like during college, during school? What was your art experience like when you were a little bit younger?
I think for me, art class was my happy place. You know, like it was a place that I actually felt that I had some value to give to the world. You know, because I never, you know, most of the other classes I found really boring, or like I wasn't very good at it, and so I don't know. In art class, it was in the only place that I felt my confidence, you know, growing a little bit, because it was the class that I felt that I could do something that I feel proud, or that I could be me, or I don't know, this sense of I just felt really happy in my art class, you know, like I felt really for me it was really a shame not to, you know, because most of the schools, they focus in other classes, right? Like there's always there's a hierarchy of classes. So art is always like the filler class, right? So I always felt a little bit like, you know, the class that I'm really good is like the one there is the fillers, you know, like you feel like you don't have value, or somehow that there is no value in what you do, because is some sort of the art class is not as important, which I think art should be, you know, anything to do with art should be as important as other classes, because art is so important.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we know this, right? But I love hearing too that you had such a good art experience, and that hopefully helped to encourage you to be the artist that you are today, right?
Yeah.
So I'm
it's more to do that also with what when I was in the class, I felt really good, you know.
Yeah, good. And again, you maybe don't remember every project you did in elementary school or when you were younger, but that feeling that connects with you, that feeling you continue, like that's what we're creating as art teachers and as artists, right? Is the safe space, the environment, the excitement, the creativity, all of that. So I'm glad that you did feel that too, Victoria, because
you will never. I think you don't forget the feeling. You, like you said, you know, you might forget the project a little bit, but the feeling you know you will never forget. I don't think.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm glad that feeling has stuck with you, because that is what we do and why we do what we do. Absolutely.
No, keep doing.
Thank you for your encouragement. We appreciate it. Okay, so another part that another thing about your work that I find really interesting is your work with street art as well, because not everything is always polished and done and finished and, you know, to be displayed. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and experimentation, I guess, with street art a bit?
The street art thing was something very spontaneous, because it wasn't something that one day I woke up and it's like, oh, I'm gonna do a street art, you know?
Right.
it was actually through the street art, it was kind of the process that I was able to, because this was my hobby, you know. I wasn't So to become like to live from basically street art, what helped me to become um, you know the, to be able to live from what I do now.
Yeah.
And it came about just because I saw one day, I always loved the street art, but I thought I could never do big murals and stuff like that. Until one day when I was in London, I saw one guy that he was putting like a little miniatures on the streets, and they were really cool. And I thought, oh my God, this is really nice. I never seen anything like it. And I Googled the guy, I Googled guy who does little,
I
and
love
and it happened to be Mexican, the guy, his name is
nice.
Pablo Delgado. So I thought,
Mm.
by that time I had a pile of magazines and portraits of, pictures with yarn that I've done. So I thought, you know what? So instead of having my stuff, in the corner in my desk, I'm just gonna go and put it out there as well. And I didn't know that in London there was this kind of big art, street art community, bloggers and photographers kind of looking for new street art. So people really love the idea of having like a textile in a photo in a street, in a street, right? So I
Yeah.
think from that point, like then I got into collaborations with another street artist and kind of like that start rolling. But it was
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like just like that because basically I saw someone else doing it, and yeah.
And that's a lot of times how artists get inspired is we see something that sort of sparks something in us and it's like, ooh, what if I do this? Or what if I change this idea and sort of take it in my own path? I also love the idea that that fiber is outside, right? Is what happens to that over time, what happens to the yarn, what happens to the magazine as it disintegrates a little bit. It's sort of a beautiful story in and of itself. Is that street art is less permanent than the pieces that you currently are making within your studio, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Perfect. And I know, like I said, some of the videos I'll be sharing after our chat today in the Art of Ed story, or at least linking to, are some really beautiful ones about Victoria's work that are great to show students. It shows some of the street art that you do as well as your process within your studio and what you're currently working on. So I have a couple other quick questions for you, and then we'll let you go. And if anybody else has anything else you want to share for the good of the order, go ahead and pop that into the chat for us. But my next question was, there, again, a lot of art teachers watching today and other creatives. How do you feel about art educators or other people being inspired by your work and then creating lessons from it and creating inspiration with their students about embroidered work?
Oh, I think it's amazing. I think it's such an honor that people, the people feel connected to share it as well with their students. I think I love when every teacher sends me pictures of us as students. You have no idea how happy that makes me feel, because I feel like my inner child also feels really happy.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and like I think, as I say, I think kids connect. I think we, as a personal experience, I think we can learn a lot through pop culture, through rather than just reading a book. They could sometimes be a bit boring, very rational or something. If you watch if you tell your students to watch a movie or to listen to a song or something like that, it can open a conversation about other topics, about empathy, about compassion, about different things. And I think kids will engage more through what through what is, because pop culture is a reflection of what is happening around in history. So I think
Yes,
it's a really good hook, to
completely.
get child's attention. Yeah.
Completely. And they already want to talk about it. It's already part of their daily life. So if we do, lessons or teach our students how to embroider, seeing what sort of people or images really stand out to them can really start that conversation about what's important to them and what are they curious about.
Exactly.
And I think that's it's it's a really great way to start that conversation. And like we've said before, bringing it to that beautiful circle and bringing it full circle. Well, thank you for sharing that with us too, Victoria, because it's nice to know that artists love seeing that inspiration as we try to teach about these contemporary artists that are currently working in our world. So I'm going to ask you one more quick question, and then we are going to move on to our trivia to try to get your hands on one of these really cool rainbow stickers. So the last question I have for you, Victoria, is what parting words of encouragement or advice do you have for art teachers, creatives, humans, students? What can you share with us to help us move forward through this very weird world?
I think in terms of like, I think it's important that if you start, you know, if you go through life and you find something that when you do it makes you feel really happy and makes you feel like you want to be a better human being, you know, because the feeling that you know, whatever that is, cooking, dancing, reading, writing, just do it as often as you can. And maybe, you know, you can live from that, maybe you can't, but, you know, don't, you know, spend a lot of time doing the things that you really love from your heart, you know. And
Completely.
if you want to be an artist and you want to work in the creative field, I think it's important just to have maybe one or two things clear, you know, because I remember with me, I was like, I just want to work in something creative, you know, that was my main thing. I didn't know a lot, you know, of what. And I think that's a good thing because sometimes you allow, you know, if you have a very rigid, like, you know, maybe that could work, but sometimes, you know, it's helpful to go towards this point before you go to that point, right? So, you know, to get to the destination, it's important that you do a turn here and maybe a turn here. So if you keep your options open, you get collaborations, or you meet someone that then it will introduce you to someone else. And so that's how you can maybe create a pattern, you know, that, you know, a way to do something. Also consistency, because consistency for me is the key, you know, because to become better, you do need to have to, you know, put hours and hours and, you know, explore materials and get into, explore. It's very important to explore materials because like that, you're going to find the material that you know, oh my God, this is it, you know, you're going to find it. So, yeah. Basically, that's it.
Right. I love that. It can speak to you a little bit too. And as you're describing that, I was just picturing like this is a metaphor for your yarn, just like taking its path throughout the canvas, because that's sort of what it is, right? It's following your heart and being open to something new and different. I mean, to bring it full circle, starting your art career in fashion and now being an embroidery artist, like things have taken a turn. And without being open for that, Victoria, it wouldn't bring you where you are today, right? I love that. I think that's perfect. And a couple other friends too are just saying that it's always makes sense when we're looking back, but at the time maybe it doesn't feel that way. And also just don't always have to know where you're going, but just have to keep moving forward. Y'all have some inspiration today, all my friends in the chat here. Okay, so the last question before we go is, those of you that have joined us today, thank you. Thank you for sticking around. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Love you.
Thank you, Victoria. So we're going to ask our quick question about Victoria's work, and I will mail you one of these super cool stickers if you are the first person to answer in the chat. So here's the question, and again, you're going to type into the chat, and the first person that answers, I will message you for your address. So the question is, what style of artwork does Victoria create? The process of decorating with yarn is another name for it. What is that called? The process of decorating with yarn or thread. What is that called? I know the suspense. It's in the title of our chat, my friends. Y'all emojis are good. Yay! Art of teaching, says embroidery. Thank you, my friend. I will message you. Of course. The art of Thank you all for responding. The art of teaching. Thank you so much for everyone that joined today. We will be saving this chat on the Art of Ed Instagram IGTV page, so you can rewatch it or share it with other friends. Show your students about Victoria's work and continue being awesome. I will also be sharing some things about Victoria and her work in the Art of Ed story after this. So stay tuned if you want to learn a little bit more about her work. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you, everybody who watched it, and I hope you liked it. And if you have any questions as well, send me a message.
Yes, you are the best. Have an amazing evening. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye-bye.